Venezuela, under President Nicolás Maduro, is entering a phase of intensified militarization and citizen mobilization. Faced with internal economic crisis, external pressure, especially from the United States, and fears of regime change, Maduro has moved to arm, enlist, and mobilize large numbers of Venezuelans in militia or civilian defense roles. This is not just rhetoric. It signals a shift in the security doctrine of the Venezuelan state, with major implications domestically and regionally. 1. Mobilizing the masses, the militia expansion. One of the most striking elements is Venezuela's push to enroll civilians into militia forces. According to an August 2025 report, in response to U.S. naval deployments in the Caribbean, Maduro's government urged citizens to join the militia, with turnout reported in the millions. Key points. The government claims some 4.5 million militia members nationwide. The militiamen are envisioned as reservists, or popular defense forces supplementing the regular armed forces, Fuerza Armada Nacional Bolivariana, or FANBA. Weapons reportedly include small arms, such as AK-103 rifles, manufactured under license in Venezuela, and possibly man-portable air defense systems, MANPADS, for more advanced national defense roles. Why it matters? Arming a large civilian force blurs the boundary between military police and ordinary citizens. In a state with political polarization, economic meltdown, and external threats, this can increase internal control, but also heighten risks of militarized repression. 2. Warning shots, anti-aircraft missiles, and defense posture. Beyond view of the crowded rallies and militia drills, Maduro has made pointed announcements about the weaponry at Venezuela's disposal, especially anti-aircraft systems, which both signal deterrence and deepen regional concern. One recent piece reported that Maduro said his forces have no fewer than 5,000 Igla-S MANPADS deployed across the country. Additional details. The Igla-S is a shoulder-fired, infrared-guided missile system capable of targeting helicopters and low-flying aircraft. The Venezuelan government is portraying this as a tool to defend the country's sovereignty against perceived U.S. threats. These announcements coincide with U.S. naval deployments in the southern Caribbean, which Venezuela perceives as escalation. Why it matters? The combination of a mass militia and advanced weapons raises the stakes. The region may face a new dynamic where Venezuela is not just responding defensively, but projecting deterrence. Friends and foes alike must consider how this affects stability in the Caribbean basin. 3. Legal and constitutional moves, emergency powers, and republic in arms. To underpin the militarization, Maduro's government has also taken legal and constitutional steps. For example, a decree was signed granting Maduro expanded emergency powers in the event of military intervention, including mobilization of the forces and control over key public infrastructure. In speeches, Maduro has promised that if the U.S. attacks or intervenes in Venezuela, he would constitutionally declare a republic in arms. Why it matters? These legal maneuvers create a framework for widespread militarization of the state and society. They also raise concerns about civil liberties, institutional checks and balances, and the possibility that the militia apparatus becomes an instrument of political coercion rather than purely national defense. 4. Internal dynamics and control. Maduro's moves cannot be seen in isolation from his political calculus. Several factors inside Venezuela are worth noting. The military, the FANB, remains a pillar of the regime. High-ranking officers have reiterated their loyalty. The economic crisis and erosion of state capacity make regime survival a priority for Maduro. Arming civilians is another layer of regime insurance. The militia strategy and propaganda around external threats help channel domestic frustration outward, framing internal challenges, the economy, protests, as consequences of foreign aggression. Why it matters? While the external narrative emphasizes deterrence, the internal logic suggests militarization is about regime security, control, and legitimization. 5. Regional and international implications. Venezuela's militarization and mass mobilization carry implications beyond its borders. A heavily armed Venezuela complicates U.S. and allied regional planning. the Caribbean, and northern South America may become theaters of strategic competition. Venezuela has reported cooperation with allies like Cuba and Nicaragua in forming defense pacts or shared militia capacity. Border states like Colombia, Guyana, and Brazil will have to respond to a more militarized neighbor, particularly in disputed areas like the Essequibo region. The risk of miscalculation grows. A heavily armed Venezuela, equipped with advanced weapons, participating in cross-border tensions, may raise the chance of unintended escalation. 6. Risks and potential flashpoints. Mobilizing and arming large civilian forces introduces multiple risks. Weapon proliferation. Once rifles, manpads, and missiles enter distributed networks, control becomes harder. Some weapons may leak, be lost, or be misused. Escalation. Every mention of republic in arms and external mobilization increases the threshold for conflict. Even defensive postures can lead to offensive behavior. Political repression. Militia forces are more easily deployed for internal policing and coercion, potentially deepening authoritarianism. Regional instability. A heavily armed Venezuela may provoke neighbors or invite interventions under drug trafficking or security pretexts. If you're tracking this story, here are key indicators: the actual number and distribution of arms being issued to militia units, how many rifles, how many manpads, training and command structure of the militia. Are they under FANB command or loosely organized? External military cooperation. Arms flows from Russia, China, Iran, joint exercises with Cuba or Nicaragua. Border activity. Is Venezuela deploying militia or regular troops near Guyana, Colombia, or other hotspots? Internal repression. Are these forces being used for domestic suppression, protests, opposition activity? Diplomacy and sanctions. How the U.S. and regional actors respond to this shift in Venezuela's posture. The strategy adopted by Nicolás Maduro marks a turning point for Venezuela's security architecture. By arming civilians, reinforcing militia capacity, deploying advanced air defense systems, and legally preparing for armed struggle, the Venezuelan state is redefining itself from internal governance to external defense posture and popular mobilization. Whether this approach ultimately strengthens state security or invites greater risk remains unclear. But what is clear, the militarized Venezuelan model is now a central piece of the Chavista strategy. For neighbors, regional powers, and international observers, Venezuela's arms mobilization is not just a domestic story, it is a potential flashpoint for the wider hemisphere.